I am IFA Jimini Ray.
I am IFA Tegunshe.
And you were tuned into
the best,
the greatest
podcast
on the planet Earth.
Let's Talk IFA.
Cabo, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk IFA. We give thanks and praise in the name of Olodumare, in the name of our ancestors. We thank you, as usual, for tuning in. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe. We pray that you are well. We pray that your family, your children, we pray that everybody is doing okay in these crazy times that we are living in. So today's topic, today's podcast is going to be on the structure of IFA divination.
Structure of IFA divination.
Just the basic structure and outline for those who may not know. The basic, structure and the basic outline of what constitutes or what makes up an IFA divination. So, I think it'll be helpful for a lot of people who may not fully understand what they're doing when they're having Idafa or IFA divination perform for them. And we think it's important for people to at least understand. We're not going to dive into a lot of detailed specifics, but this is just an overarching, explanation of the divination itself.
Kind of like just touching the surface of the process of IFA divination.
So
we're just kind of touching the surface, and it's not nothing. The scholars out there don't have to say, well, I didn't get that from Mayoluo and they're wrong. Like, we just touching the surface on some basic things, on IFA divination. From what I've seen and witnessed doing my training, and with Mayoluo, Chief Ajamu, Ibarra Toro. One of the things I remember him doing, he showed me the process of IFA divination, and he also showed me the process of divination that Oyochunji used. But he also took me around because he knew a lot of people. He was well connected with a lot of Babalawos from different regions, different
different houses, different.
Yeah, exactly. So he kind of took me around other diviners and other diviners who, from other systems, and set me and had me sit with him and amongst them as they divined, and I was able to see just certain techniques and things of that sort. So I think we can't say there's one way, because people, from what I witnessed, people have different styles and different processes of how they divine, and so so we can dive in to the structure of IFA divination.
First, we wanted to start out and just talk about the history and the purpose of IFA divination just a little bit. So, for those who don't know, IFA divination was given to us by Olodumare, by the Creator, as a means of communicating with or getting advice, tapping into the wisdom of Olodumare, which is also the wisdom of the ancestors, right? To be able to tap into that when we had, issues or problems or, things that we couldn't solve on our own, but also divination was traditionally done and required also during certain certain particular events in human life, like, birth, a woman becoming pregnant, and then the birth of the child, different things like that, during initiations and different things. And all this was a system that is here, that was given to the ancestors as a way to help humanity, to help human beings seek wisdom and advice on how to handle and approach different things and how to solve different problems and issues that we were having, or how to keep everything on track. The way, if it's going good, how to keep it going good. Right? So everything under the sun, from mental illness to, physical sickness, to job, to money, to career, to spouse, to anything you can think of, that is the purpose and kind of the history of IFA divination. What is it? Why is it? And all of that type of thing.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to say and make this clear to everybody is that, because I've read, some IFA books, written by scholars, and I've come across where they say, IFA divination is 10,000 years old or 8,000 years old. But one thing we got to realize is you can't put a number on how old IFA is, because IFA is as old as,
way older than that.
The universe was created. IFA is the wisdom of the universe. So you can't put a number. You can't say IFA is 10,000, because IFA exists in heaven even before you come to earth. It's IFA divination that goes on in Orun before you even journey to this physical realm. You got to go to you have to go to a heavenly Babalawo, the divination, to see, how your journey going to be here. You also got to make Eba in Orun so that you have a safe journey to this physical realm. So divination is going on in Orun as well. So you can't put a number and say, well, IFA is 10,000 years old. Now, you might say, on Earth it might be that, but I even doubt is that you can't even put a number on that. On divination, period, because divination has always existed. Another thing is with IFA divination. IFA divination is IFA is the voice of Eledumare. It's the voice of the ancestors. It's the voice of the Irumale, the Orisha. And so they are, in order for us to know what an Orisha is saying to us as humans, we go for divination. It's the priests that decode the message. And those messages may come in the form of verses, because IFA is a very parallel system. So it may come in the form of verses. It may even come in the form of riddles at times. But it's the trained priest that has the knowledge of decoding them for and breaking it down in a simple form where it can be communicated to the client, to the community, and so forth, so that they can understand it. And so IFA divination is a very vast system. It's very complex as well. And so you have to have trained priests who are able to decode those messages and break it down in a way where human beings can understand it.
Benny. So, when it comes to the structure of IFA divination, of course, there is, always been a fee for divination. If you read or listen to a lot of, old IFA verses, they'll say that the client took the 2 and added it to the 3 and went to the priest for divination, meaning that back in the days, cowries were a form of currency.
Mm-hmm.
So they would take 2 plus 3 cowries. They would take 5 cowries, and that was the payment. That was the payment, in ancient times,
Right.
for the priest or the babalawo when the
Right.
client went for divination. So that's what that's saying, right? So, and there's always going to be some advice and some messages that are going to be given to the client, and there's always going to be some type of ebor or sacrifice that needs to be done on the client's behalf as well. So the first thing that's always done is the priest or priestess will open up. We'll say their mojuba, which means to give thanks. So that's just to kind of stand at prayer that a priest is going to say to open up, to give thanks, to give honor to Olodumare, the creator, to give honor to the ancestors, to give honor to all the Orisha, to the Iami, to Eshu, to Egbe, to all the forces and the Orisha, to pay homage and to give thanks and to, we call it opening up.
The open prayer. And then, some people will call on during the prayer, they'll call on the names of deceased priests that came before them. And the reason that is done is because when you're doing that prayer and you're calling on those deceased priests who were great diviners, you asking the spirit of those priests to descend and surround you and be on your side while you're making divination, so that they can assist you in the divination. And so that's why we even call those names. We always greet Olodumare, because that's we pay homage to, Olodumare. We pay homage to Eshu, because we know Eshu is the messenger.
Odo Eshu.
And Odo Eshu. And we know that Eshu is watching us doing the divination process. That's why when you see Babalawo's divine, when especially with Ikini Fa, and they have the Opon, the face or the faces on the Opon or the face of Eshu. Eshu was watching the diviner. And that's Eshu watching the world, but Eshu is also watching the diviner to make sure that the diviner is following the proper steps in divination.
And even when you don't have a physical Opon trade present, even if you just have a cloth there, Eshu is still at the top of the surface where you're divining. And also, when we call the priest or the priestesses names that have passed away, not only, like the Baba said, is that a form of ancestor veneration and we're honoring them, but we are also invoking their spirit to help guide us and give us information, and also be here to witness and assist with the divination that is about to be done. So that's done. And also, so when that's done, some general prayers will be said. The spirit of Ella and Orumila will be invoked to descend, to be here to witness and assist as well with the divination and to help facilitate the divination.
And one thing you have to realize is that, because a lot of people, Ifa is not a particular person, or Orumila is the one who was given the knowledge of Ifa to bring into this physical realm to teach humans. Right? But Ifa is the wisdom. Ifa is just the voice of Olodumare. Doing the prayer process, as the Baba said, Ella is invoked, Orumila is invoked, again, to descend and to guide the diviner. It's a reason why we call on these names, doing the prayer process of divination, and so that those forces, or Rumila, and all of them can guide us during that process of divination.
Benny. So after that is done, there is a process. It's a ritual that's done to do what we call open up the opan, or open up the mat, to prepare the space to do the divination. We'll just keep that high level. We won't go any further into that right now, but just know that that's something that's done by the priest or the priestess. Next, the priest is going to identify the subject of the divination, the person, and we usually identify them by their mother.
Sure.
Or if it's for a town or for the village, or if whatever it's for, the subject of the divination will be identified.
Sure.
Usually at that time, the client will produce some type of money. If they pay electronically, we just ask them to bring it, whether it's a coin, a dollar, whatever it is, so that they can hold it in their hand while they're sitting on the mat, and then they will touch themselves. They will clean off with the money, with the owo, and then they will say their prayers and their intentions into the money for, why they're here for divination, or just say their prayers on what they want to get out of the divination, or whatever's going on, whatever it is.
And the money is a form of sacrifice that you're making when you put your money down for divination. Is you making that sacrifice to put something that you earned to receive the message of, or the wisdom of Ifa. No matter what form of divination, it can be Erin de Logun that you're doing, you still have to pay something. That payment is part of the sacrifice. Sure.
And also your willingness to do the divination, your willingness to listen and be humble, and spend your time and your energy to come and participate in the divination, and the money that you're paying, right? That's all part of the sacrifice. So after that's done, there'll be some other chanting that's done, and some other prayers that are done, and then the divination will begin. So different forms of divination. You have Baba mentioned there in Din Logun, which is 16 cowries, which is usually used by a Orisha priest, so like a priest or a priestess of Batala, or Olorisha, Batala, Shango, Shun, Yamanjao, Lokun, Batala, whatever it is, they use the 16 cowries. If it is a priest or a priestess of Ifa, they will be using what's known as the Opwele or the Ikin. So divination will commence. From an Ifa perspective, the diviner will divine and get what we call three Odu, or three signs, or three omen. 1, 2, 3. First one is the head Odu, or Olori Odu, which is the main event. That's like the main subject of the divination. The second two Odu are, let's just say they are descriptors, or they are there to assist and go into further detail related to the first Odu. They're there to give more information, to assist, to give more details, to support the main Odu. Okay, so somebody might say, okay, well, you had a divination. Now, what was the Odu? It's going to be the first of the three Odu that the priest got during the divination.
So that is Olori Odu, That is Ire, which is the blessings. And then you have Ayewo, which is the cross-examination. And then once it's determined if the ruling Odu or Lori Odu is coming in Ire or Ayewo, then we go down to finding out. So let's say the reading is in Ire, then we are asked if the Ire is coming from Aiku, which is longevity.
Long life and longevity.
You know, and then that's a whole process, because if I may say, no, it's like not longevity. So then we go to whatever is next. Some divinate. I don't think there's a standard way of trying to find out what's, diviners. What I usually do is I'll look at the ruling Odu
and
then I would say, okay, I see a lot of long life in this Odu. So I'm asking if Ire Aiku, Bani, Otio, Bakar. If I says no on that throw, I would say Ire Shegun, which is victory, Ire Aje, or Ire Lati Okete, which is blessings coming from other domains or other places, and and go on.
Ilera, good health, like Ilera. So, and then and even just to back up a little bit. So, like again, for those who may not know, the divination itself can come in either one or two orientation. It's going to come in Ire, which means blessings, which basically means that things are good and in alignment with the subject's destiny.
Sure.
Or it can come in Ayewo, as the Bible mentions. Some people call it Ibi, some people call it Osogbo. It's all the same thing. But Ayewo, like the Bible said, it means cross-examination. So if it comes in Ayewo, Ifa is saying that there's something in this person's Akashic record, there's something in their spiritual file related to them right now, related to the energy of what's going on, that needs to be highlighted. It needs to be checked out. It needs to be cross-examined, right? So that's what the Baba was saying. So if it's Ire, the diviner will find out what area of life the Ire is coming in. If it's in Ayewo and cross-examination, the diviner has to figure out what particular area of life do we need to cross-examine. So that's what just to go back, to backtrack a little bit, to give a little history on what the Baba was saying. Okay, so that's what's happening when you sit down and you're having Ifa divination.
And I encourage everyone, those who are seeking their first Ifa divination, and they're out there researching on Ifa, and they want to take their first step into receiving their first Ifa divination. I will say this to you: make sure that your heart is in it.
I say,
make sure that your ori, your mind, and your heart is in it. Yes, do your research, but make sure that you are prepared. Make sure that your ori and your heart is prepared to take that step and get in the divination. Because Ifa is not like you going to get a palm reading. Ifa has culture to it. Ifa is spirituality. Ifa is also politics. Is everything. So it's a serious step in getting your Ifa divination. Just make sure that your ori and your heart is good, and make sure this is what you want to do. Don't go on the mat and you're unsure. Go with, have that faith that you're going to receive the blessings of Ifa, because sitting on that mat, just sitting on that mat receiving the divination, you get blessings from that.
I say.
because that mat that you're sitting on is sacred.
I say.
So for you to even for the awo or the awos apetebi is wife, for them to welcome you into their temple and for you to even sit down, that's a blessing in itself because you're in the house of Orumila. And so that's a blessing for you just even sitting there and then receiving the divination and the wisdom that comes from it. That's also a blessing. So you got to understand you're making a sacrifice, but go with faith.
Danny. Faith, good intentions, all those positive mindset, all those things. So the next thing that we wanted to kind of talk about, to touch on, in the structure of Idafa, the structure of IFA divination. So the next thing that's going to happen when, we get the Odu, we determine, okay, Ire, Ayewo, the specifics of the reading. Now the interpretation of the Odu will start. So there will be certain stories, certain advice, wisdom, and spiritual guidance that will come from the divination based on the Odu that dropped on the mat, based on all the Odu, not just the first Odu. The first Odu is the main thing that is explained, and that's the meat of it. But there's also a lot of supporting information that can be gleaned from a trained priest from all the Odu that have fallen. But everything still relates back to the main Odu, if you follow that. So you have wisdom and spiritual advice that's going to come. Then you're going to have Ewo, which is taboos that are going to come, which are things that you should not do. And then lastly, you're going to have whatever the Ebo or the sacrifice is that Ifa is saying it needs to be done. Usually there's a particular Orisha or energy that is identified and needs to be appeased, and they're different. We're not going to get into that here, but there are different types of, Ebo and sacrifices that can be done based on what Ifa says needs to be done. Sometimes it may not be a particular Orisha that needs to be appeased. Sometimes you have to go through the Odu itself to appease a particular Odu.
Right.
To bring about the solution, to resolve the issue, or to just basically keep up the E-ray that's already there.
They say, when you receive Ifa divination, and you might have Ire, and if I may say you're in alignment or you're in harmony, you still make Ebo.
Ebo is coming, sacrifice coming either way.
You may get Ayewo, you still make Ebo.
I say.
So you always got to make Ebo no matter if the reading is Ire or is Ayewo. Still make Ebo because the Ebo helps to keep the client in harmony with their destiny or their purpose. And that's a very, very important thing. Very important. We don't want to go too deep into that right now, but that's just, we're giving you that little piece because the process of divination, when that ruling Odu is cast and it's time to find out what the Ebo is, the Ebo comes from the Odu itself based on the client's situation and why they are on the mat receiving that divination. So the Ebo is extracted from the Odu and confirmed by Ifa based on the client's situation. Now, the client may have come for a general divination. You still make Ebo, but Ifa would determine what the proper Ebo is.
So don't be upset or don't fret or don't be down if your divination comes in Iowa, because we see this all the time, people get all flustered about it. It's okay because you're going to make sacrifice regardless.
Or a famous line is the reading bad? Is it bad? And it's like, it's not about, one thing I learned, as a diviner now that I'm a little older, I really don't get into if the reading is bad or good.
Bad,
It just is.
It's what it is.
Receive the wisdom. That's the main thing. Because you can get the divination and you're given the wisdom, you can make the eyeball. Once the eyeball is done, you still need to follow the prescription and the wisdom that was given. Don't just say, well, I did my eyeball. I can go back. I'm good. No. Read over that reading until, Spirit tells you it's time to get another reading. But continue to read over that reading and continue to read over and go back over it and lock that wisdom in your head and apply it. Because once you apply it, you got to understand that eyeball helps with keeping you in harmony, right? But you also have to apply the wisdom from the divination to also help make the necessary changes that you need in your life. You can't just say, I did the eyeball and then sit on your butt and don't do nothing. No, you have to apply the wisdom in real life through action. So if IFA says you have to work on your character, if IFA says you have to be patient, you have to discipline yourself. Find a way to discipline yourself to be more, disciplined.
IFA's not going to do it for you.
Yeah, you have to do it. That's why you're giving the prescription through the wisdom of IFA to say, stop cursing. It could be a taboo. Stop this, stop that. You need to do this, you need to do that. Apply the wisdom and you're going to see the necessary changes that's destined for you. You're going to see it happen.
Yeah, IFA will assist you, but it's not going to get up and do it for you. So you have to put some type of level of effort in. And then once they see that, it's just like the ancestors. Okay, now, all right, they did their part. They're trying. I see what's going on.
Exactly.
Let me come in and help them out and give them some assistance. You can't just do nothing. And my philosophy is there's no bad divination because of the nature of IFA divination. The solution is always provided, is built in to the divination. So, because you could have a quote unquote good reading that comes in E-Ray.
Yeah.
And then you could do the sacrifice, but if you don't pay attention to your taboos or if you don't follow the spiritual advice,
you broke it.
Then you're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah, you didn't.
But you still happy because the reading came in E-Ray, but the E-Ray is delicate. So don't get caught up in the E-Ray and the IA. Will just take the wisdom, take it for what it is, do your sacrifices, and follow the advice.
And the E-Ray is really saying to a person, you got to work for this E-Ray. It's not saying you got E-Ray.
Yeah.
It's saying you have the potential to receive this necessary E-Ray. But you got to work for that.
Yeah. Don't get lazy.
It's open. The doors is open for you to receive that E-Ray, but you have to work for that E-Ray. And part of that work is following the wisdom that through that divination, following the wisdom of IFA. Do the eyeball and continue to follow with the wisdom of IFA. And that's what's going to lead you to your prosperity.
Yeah. So you have on one part with IFA divination, you have the wisdom, the advice, the taboos, and all that stuff that's given. The other part of it is the sacrifice or the ebal that is done on your behalf to bring the balance or to rearrange the equation so that it's favorable and everything is back in harmony and then synchronicity. Sure. And then you see the results of the ebal and the sacrifice manifest in your life, right? That's the full circle of it. That's where the rubber meets the road. So you have that part, then you have this part, and that's the full cycle. That's the full thing of IFA divination, is when, you know, the sacrifices are done and then you're living your life in that, you know, in that lane and walking in the blessings of IFA and the ancestors and the Orisha based on the Idafa and the sacrifices that were done.
Sure.
So that's kind of like the complete cycle of things. You know.
Yes. IFA divination is very amazing because it's life changing, and we've seen it as diviners and as those who do the work of IFA. We've seen miracles happen. You know, we've seen the miracles that, you know, IFA offers you. Like, as long as you follow the prescription.
Benny.
You know, IFA says, you know, you have a taboo against alcohol, just don't do it. Leave it alone. Discipline yourself not to use. But, you know, IFA says no drugs. Don't do no drugs. You know, so it's just following what IFA say. Remember, this is the wisdom of the heaven. And so in order for you to exist in this physical realm, you have to follow the wisdom of Eledumare. And that's IFA.
Ashe. So we're going to wrap this up. We pray that you were able to gain some type of insight and that this provided some value for you. We love y'all. We thank y'all. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe. I am Awo Ifa Jiminire.
I am Awo Ifa Tegunshe.
And you were tuned in to
the best,
the greatest
podcast
on the planet Earth.
Let's talk IFA. Odabo.
Ashe wa. Odabo for now, everybody. Ire lopo lopo. Agbo ato. Asuri wodi wo fun. Ashe.
Ashe wa.